So one of the themes in our acoustic guitar creation is choices that aren't easy to do or easy to make, but serve the instrument as a musical tool. One of those choices is using nitrocellulose lacquer to finish the instruments.
Nitro lacquer finish is used on Gibsons for a number of reasons, one of which it was our tradition, and we want to stay with what has worked for so many decades, almost certainly 100 years. But the principle of nitrocellulose lacquer basically goes on the instrument in a very lighter coat than other types of finishes, which are more like plastic, called polyurethane finishes.
One of the big advantages, I believe, to using nitrocellulose lacquer is that its repairability. Not only that, but that it lets the instrument, it moves, and it lets the instrument vibrate too.
It is not only getting absorbed into the wood, but it's releasing solvents, gassing off into the world. As that happens, the lacquer gets thinner and thinner. And as that happens, that guitar is allowed to breathe, freed up to vibrate, to create tone. There's really something to be said to those vintage guitars and tonality you get out of them. And the bulk of that is the result of the nitrocellulose lacquer that was put on that guitar 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago.
Over the years, you're playing this instrument, it's vibrating more and more. That lacquer is getting thinner and thinner and thinner until you just hand it off to the next part of your family and as an heirloom and say, I've been playing this for years and it just gets better with decades of sound. And the lacquer has something to do with that.
On a given day, we do X number of guitars, and the guitars are on the conveyor line as it goes through the spray booth. They will get a coat. That spray line will go, it will run its course all the way around, do its path. By the time it comes back through the spray booth, it is ready for its next coat. And that's been all engineered and timed out for the different types of lacquer, the different types of finishes, so they do not have to wait. Currently here in Bozeman, Montana at Gibson, we utilize 4 different types of applications of our nitrocellulose lacquer. Our G collection receives 3 coats of lacquer, just very light covering to give it protection, give it that nitro feel, that nitro smell, and just to get it that chance to again mature and age and become that really cool guitar down the road. Our faded collection is our first line of guitars that features full satin finish. It is nitro, 6 coats, the last coat being satin, gives it a really smooth feel, a really nice patina because it's not really shiny. I love satin myself. I love the feel of the neck. I love the feel of the body under my arm. And this is our first foray into satin as a price list item guitar. With the exception of the G collection, all of our modern guitars and all of our original guitars receive what we call our full coat gloss finish.
Before we did the expansion, we had 1 main lacquer line. In the new facility here, we have 2 main lacquer lines, and we have a 3rd one that the satin instruments go on. And so everything that gets a full 7 coats of lacquer, the first day go on what we would call the red line and the blue line, and then on the green line, all of the satin instruments go on that. And having 2 lines lets us be able to spray all those instruments in the span of a day instead of just being on 1 big line.
On our custom historic line, we've always touted the fact that the reason that the vintage guitars sound the way they do is because the lacquer has been allowed to get thinner and thinner over time as it dissipates, as it gets absorbed. So we thought we would give these historic replica models a little jump start. On these models, we put about 5 coats of lacquer, which is about half of what goes on the full gloss models. Because of that fact, the lacquer is so thin, you can only do a really light buffs, and then we do what we call a VOS finish, which is a hand rub finish to give it a little bit of a patina, again, to make it look like an older guitar. They're not distressed, they're not checked or anything, but just made to look like a guitar that's been under the bed for 50 years, never been played. And we think the effect is fantastic, and the tonal change with that light lacquer is amazing. Those vintage, period correct, historic line guitars really, really have their own vibe. They really sound fantastic.
The end goal of the lacquer is to have the finish right around 8 or 9 thousandths. If it's too thin, the buffers will buff through it. If it's too thick, it kind of deadens or restricts the sound of the guitars.
Once the guitars get their 2 final coats, they go into what's called a rest cycle. And at that point then, they are ready to move forward into wet sanding and buffing. Our new spray booth facility is just, it's incredible. It's huge, it's modern, and we're still just shaking our head every day we walk in there, seeing what we have accomplished over the last couple of years since they started construction. We have slightly less than a mile of conveyor lines in the new facility.
I think some of the big ways in which it's changed since I've been around in the last 34 years is that they've came in and they've expanded the building a lot, you know. They've really taken us from almost from the dark ages in the finishing department to modern technology that will help us really be able to do our jobs better and produce a higher quality product.
Having some influence on acoustic guitar creation and production today is extremely meaningful for me because this is, you know, what I wanted to do since I was a kid. I cut out pictures of guitars and pasted them on my wall and pretended I had a big collection of Gibsons. So to be here today is really a lifelong dream come true. And my only role here is really just to be a custodian of the brand and to get us to the next phase of innovation and meaningful instrument creation.